Tonight we bring you truly a very special episode, one that celebrates both history in the making and the trailblazing leadership shaping the future of law enforcement in the Bahamas. March is Police Month, a time when we recognize the hard work, sacrifice and dedication of the men and women who serve and protect our nation. We also are in the midst of celebrating International Women's Day, a day dedicated to honoring the achievements of women around the world and pushing for greater equality in every field. Tonight, these two celebrations intersect in a powerful way. For the first time in history, the Royal Bahamas Police Force has a woman who sits at the helm. Commissioner Shanta Knowles is not just leading the force, she's redefining what leadership looks like in a traditional male-dominated institution. From her early days as a young officer to now commanding the highest position in the RBPF, her journey is nothing short of inspiring. So stay tuned as we get started on the other side of this break. To welcome the first female commissioner of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Welcome to the show, Commissioner Shanta Knowles.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Let me first of all say I've seen you elsewhere and I've said it, but I want to officially congratulate you on your appointment and tell you how personally proud I am to see you ascend to this role.
Thank you so much.
You know, when you get a little older and you've been in the business a little long, you develop relationships over the years, and we've worked in so many different capacities over the years. So from the moment I heard that you were receiving the appointment, I took a bit of personal pride in that.
Well, thank you so much.
And so I've been eager to have you on the show.
I'm glad I'm here with you.
All right. And at such a pivotal time, because we are really getting ready to celebrate International Women's Day. And so, you know, your role, I think, is so much more and represents so much more. And we're going to talk about that in a bit. But let's start at the beginning, if I can. Take us back to really what inspired you to join the Royal Bahamas Police Force.
At the age of 15, I met Udaijah Taylor-Stevens. She was a senior police officer and the first female gazetted officer.
That's a name I haven't heard in so long.
She is still here.
Oh,
She is still encouraging,
okay.
And we stay in contact with her. But I met Udaijah Taylor-Stevens in Rock Sound when she had come for a visit, and she inspired me. Her presence, the way she talked about the Royal Bahamas Police Force, I knew then that that was the career path that I would want to take. I wanted also to be a teacher, but to listen to her talk about the police force and giving back to her community certainly inspired me to continue on that path. And the first opportunity I got, I made application and was successful, and here I am today. And so I thank Udaijah Taylor-Stevens for setting the positive example for me.
So, like that, just to hear that name sparked so much nostalgia, because growing up, you know, and hearing her, you know, to be that first gazetted female. So, what were some of your earlier roles within the force and your experiences that really sort of helped to shape your career?
So I joined at the early age of 18, young age of 18, and once I had completed the training exercise, a 6 months training exercise at the police college, I was posted at the Southern Division. We say the Quaco Street Police Station. Okay. And so for the year and a half that I spent there, it was walking the communities. That is where I first learned the importance of walking the streets of our communities and getting to know people. And so we walked the beat in those days. We got to know the people on the streets or in some of the streets. We got to hear their concerns and take that information back to our stations. so that our commanders could find ways to address that. And so those were the earlier days, learning the first steps in police investigations in those stations with minor matters, and of course meeting the people and embracing the people in our communities.
Over the years, you've had several postings. We have worked together in several different iterations in your career in the force. Any that stand out as particular favorites?
I think I love the posting that I had at the criminal investigation, especially in my early years. I was posted for the majority of my time in the criminal investigation in the sexual offenses unit. And there I got to meet those vulnerable people in our communities who were assaulted, not because I enjoyed working those kind of crimes, but what I did enjoy was trying to find comfort for those people. And so that was an area that I held near and dear to my heart, that if I can help to ease the pain of these, especially women and girls who were being assaulted on our streets, then I feel accomplished.
So that's not something I hear often from police officers about, wanting to give comfort, although, you are there to serve and protect. So again, how were you able to strike that balance? Because, you're talking about wanting to help folks who have been, for whatever reason, attacked or assaulted, but also still trying to enforce the law. How do you strike that balance?
Well, that I believe the balance is that you have to want to give service from the heart. You have to be a people's person. A lot of times, victims of crime want to be heard, and then they want to know that people are truly seeking justice for them. And once you can do that and work diligently to find those who offend the law for them, to put them before the courts, I do believe that is the important part of it, and that is how you strike the balance, to be able to comfort those who are afflicted by or affected by crime, and then, of course, to find those who are the perpetrators and put them before the courts.
And often the public doesn't see you striking that balance.
I think the public...
Not you particularly, but I should say officers striking that balance. It's either one way or the other.
Well, I do believe that there are so many officers who are certainly empathetic towards the needs of people in the community. We just don't highlight them enough. And I believe that this is the time that we highlight the fact that there are true servants in our organization.
We definitely want to talk about that a little bit more in our next segment. I still want to talk a little bit more about you, though, in this segment. But which departments or which postings or experiences would you say really helped to shape your leadership style today?
I think when we talk about my leadership style, I think it would be the National Crime Prevention Office. So working in CID, I got to meet lots and lots of people, but of course in circumstances that were not ideal for them. But in the National Crime Prevention Office, I now got the experience to go out into civic society, to meet with people, to address different organizations, to talk about our police force, to find ways that we can enhance security at their organizations. And I think that is where my leadership development truly began.
How have you seen the role of women evolve in the police force since you first joined? I'll take you to a bit of a story. I remember when I can't recall who it was, but I remember as a child watching when the first female officer was put on a motorbike. And that was, so for me, that was, I remember that being such a game changer in the society at the time, because it was only men who rode motorcycles. And I remember when that happened, and I thought, oh, okay. And for me, I remember that because it was so significant. But from your perspective, how have you seen the role of women evolve in your years on the force?
When we look at women in policing, we, especially here in the Bahamas, we have recorded lots of firsts. And we continue to encourage women to push forward, to be dedicated to this craft of policing so that they can elevate themselves into positions such as mine. When I think about women in leadership positions, there has always, in my tenure in the organization, seen women in leadership positions. I can remember offhand, under the Commission of Police, Paul Rule. There were about 5 or 6 of us who were commanders of divisions or departments. That doesn't, and then of course, there were in other commissioners' eras, there were women officers who were in leadership or supervisory positions, and so women have always been excelling in our organization. We waited of course, we waited for a while before we got the first female officer to be deputy commissioner, but we've now shattered the glass ceiling.
Yes, all the way to the top. Any challenges? And this isn't unique to women on the police force, but any challenges that you have faced or you see other female officers facing on the force in dealing with men, particularly in a role that historically has been either dominated by or seen as a role or a career for men?
I think our organization is one that made sure, or as far as possible, made sure that women did not face challenges. Of course, there will always be challenges. It's how you deal with those challenges, how you view those challenges. To tell you that I can think of challenges right off the bat, no. But I believe that there may have been challenges for some women. They have not clearly shared them. As for me, whenever I thought that I hit a roadblock somewhere, I look at it as a stepping stone to what the future could possibly be like.
Did you ever feel that you had to work harder to prove yourself?
Not to prove myself as a woman, but to prove myself as someone who is worthy for promotions in the organization, yes. And I do believe that is a very important criteria, that we show that we are capable of handling a position that we strive for.
I think for me, you hit the nail right on the head, being capable. I think sometimes we look at so many other factors without looking at what is most important, is the individual capable at the end of the day. How do you think your appointment as the first female commissioner has impacted the perception of women in law enforcement?
I think women now understand or realize that there is no glass ceiling, and that one woman has already ascended to the position of commissioner of police, and so others can do so. And I'm hoping that I am inspiring some of my female colleagues in the junior ranks to now be even more dedicated, be even more committed, and to strive to get to this position.
Do you think there are other little girls who are out there looking at you who had that same experience that you had as a little girl in Eleuthero?
I do. I had the privilege of walking the community yesterday, and I think the street was Taylor Street that I met some little girls, and then I met them again on Fritz Lane. And these were little girls who were eager to meet the first female commissioner of police. And so I believe that this role that I'm sitting in right now certainly will inspire young girls in our community to look at, to set goals, to set dreams, even in law enforcement, because they understand now that the sky is the limit.
Does the gravity of being the first female commissioner put any additional pressure on you?
I think it does. I think I'm under a microscope because people want to see immediate change, and we know that that can't happen, that there can be no immediate change. But I also know that there are some who are looking to see whether or not she will fail, whether or not she can bring the organization to a different standard, whether or not she can curb the crime and violence that is occurring in our community. And I say that the crime and violence, for us to decrease the crime and violence, it is a community effort. But of course, it is also me encouraging my men and women to go out there and work diligently to prevent. So yes, there is some pressure. Can I handle it? Yes, I certainly can.
Do you think this will have your appointment will have a bit of a trickle-down effect in law enforcement? And I when I say law enforcement, I mean beyond just the police force. In other areas of enforcement, do you think your appointment will impact those areas as well?
Certainly, I do believe so. There are women in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force who sit in high ranks, and I believe that one day one of them will become the Commodore of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. There are women, and of course we've had a director of immigration who was a woman, and I believe that there are others who are aspiring to hold these positions. And yes, I do believe that this position today certainly will be inspiring more women to these positions.
Do you feel there are enough women in senior leadership positions within the force today?
when you look at the ratio of women to men in our organization, I believe that we have a beautiful number of women in leadership. Do we want more? Of course we do. We always want more. And so that is why we are encouraging our women to not look only at their gender to be advanced, but to look at their ability to police, their ability to manage, their ability to show their dedication, their commitment to this organization, because that is truly what counts. Do we want more women? Of course we do.
Are there any things that you are looking to introduce to the force that will provide that additional support? Because the reality is men and women require different things on any job, no matter the profession, no matter what it is. We are different species, we are different genders within the species, and we require different things. But are there any things in particular you would like to introduce to the force that will provide that additional support for your female officers?
So certainly not introduce, but to continue with,
Okay.
and that is training, especially for women, to give women or give more female officers an opportunity to attend international trainings. And so I'm hoping that as we begin to get into our international training schedules, more women would be allowed to take part in those trainings.
Why is that important? Why is that international exposure and training important?
Well, for one, it shows the correlation between the way we do things in the Bahamas and the way other countries investigate, the way we investigate, the way other countries. And we want to learn from others' experience, but also share our own experience, because we do believe that we are leaders, especially in the Caribbean, in the way we police our community, in the way we detect crime. We still have some prevention challenges, but we're working on them. We have community projects that we have led with before, and I believe we will lead with again. So it is important for us to go to different places to see how to learn and to bring those things, positive things, back into our organization.
Again, I want to talk a bit about balance. As with any industry, any job, any career, the role of a woman on that job is very different, because women, by their very roles in society, are mothers. They are wives. They have different roles and responsibilities within the home, within the family. But looking at the police force, it is a very demanding job. It keeps officers away from families just by the very nature of what it is that you do. It's a high-stress job, risky. So you have all these other things that come along with this role that don't necessarily apply to other jobs, but your role as women remains the same. Going back to the question is balance. How do you balance being mom, wife, head of the household in many ways in the role of a woman, against being police officer, high-ranking officer, even commissioner, when they're two different roles in many ways, but you got to balance them?
I think that's where we talk about the strength of a woman, that we are truly strong beings, and God knows what He was doing when He made us. And so we understand the importance of balance, but we understand also that we are servants. We have families to serve and communities to serve, and so we strike a balance. We know that there are times when the family structure will need us, and that we must be there for family structure. But we also what we try to do, especially me, is to say to my family that there are also other people in the community who need me. And so right now, you don't truly need me, you want me here with you, but there is someone in a community who needs Shanta Knowles. She will be back to you once she sees how she can address the needs of others. And so women have a way of prioritizing, I think is the better way of putting it. And we can do that. And so I've been doing that over the many, many, many years. I have stories that I could tell where that when I look back on, I laugh, especially with one particular officer. When I say to him that I've missed my daughter's entire 5th birthday, but I understood the reason why I had to miss that birthday, and of course I made it up over the many years, of course, over the many, many, many years.
All the way up to 10, 12.
I think, all the way up to today, I'm still making up for the fact that I missed her entire birthday. But it's all about prioritizing your time and understand the importance of being a servant, understand the importance of this organization, that it is not a 9-to-5 job. If you're going to take on this role of being a police officer, you must be able and willing to give up your time to people.
And I have to ask that there is no difference in how schedules or appointments or things are done. I presume men and women are given the
exact same opportunities. The exact same
and assignments.
Yes, it certainly are. But of course, again, it's the strength of the woman that always prevails.
And I guess, too, the sacrifice is what the public does not always see or appreciate, eh?
Because when I think about missing the 5th birthday, I realize that is a serious sacrifice. And of course, many other occasions, other officers in there miss with their families, especially during Junkanoo time is one of the times that we hear lots of concerns from our officers when we get into that season, that they're working 14, 15 hours to ensure that these parades are policed properly, and they're missing family times. And so we make it up to them in other ways.
Let me share in this misery with you. We have to leave families to come at Junkanoo as well. So I know all too well. And oftentimes I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, we meet the officers here on Bay Street and we leave them here on Bay Street.
That is correct.
And that's just one example. I mean, and there's so many times that you all are called to service that the public doesn't appreciate, that sometimes it's continuous.
That's right. That is so. And you meet us there, you leave us there, but then you think that we're just standing there, but we're paying attention to the crowds and praying that, we're hoping and praying that no incidents happen that we can't manage or handle in these situations where we have large crowds. And so
and
continue to pray for us.
Heaven forbid something happen, you all are there.
I have
seen you all move into action
yes.
at events so quickly.
Of course. That is what training is all about, and that is what we say to our officers. As soon as you see that something potentially is about to happen, see how quickly you can deal with it, because we have thousands of people who we want to protect out there.
We're definitely going to spend a little more time in the next segment talking about policing, but as we prepare to wrap up this segment, what advice do you give for young women who are considering a career in law enforcement, whether it's those young ladies you saw through Taylor Street, somebody who's watching this program, or some young lady who will interact with yourself or any other female officers on the force and may consider a career in law enforcement? What's your advice?
My advice is to look closely at the organization that you want to join. Any one of us in any organization in law enforcement, but don't look at it just for a job. These are organizations that truly give service to our people. And if you want to join an organization, think about truly giving service to the people of the country, not just for a pay from an organization, but to give service. And so be dedicated to the fact that once you join an organization, you are committed to providing service for the people of the country.
Commissioner, I think that's a good place to leave it there for now. We're going to take our first break in the show. When we come back, we spent a lot of time talking about how we got to this point, your career. So we're going to talk a little bit about the now and what you are facing as commissioner, and also the future, your plans going forward. So stay with us. You're watching a very special edition of On the Record with our first female police commissioner. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to On the Record. We are still with the Commissioner of Police, Shanta Knowles. I want to dive deep now into your appointment. This is the segment where we really talk about the now and the future. When you first learned you were being considered for the role, or when did you first learn that you were being considered for the role of police commissioner?
I think I learned the same day that the general public found out about
Really?
it, the very same day. I got a call early that morning. I think it was the 4th of December. I got a call from Commissioner Fernanda asking me to get on the first flight to New Providence.
Was that the first indication?
As we continued to talk, I asked him what happened, and he says, I'm here with the Prime Minister. You need to come into Nassau.
Okay.
I told him that the first flight had already left and there's no way I can get out before either 12 o'clock or 2 o'clock. He says, okay, get on a flight and come directly to my office. Is there a concern? Now, I did have an incident that had occurred the night before in Grand Bahama, so I thought that I was being questioned or being called to be questioned on that. I went into Nassau, I went into his office, and he sat down and he explained to me what was happening. And he says, okay, now I'm taking you to the Prime Minister. And so it was a moment of, I think the only person I told that I was coming into Nassau was my daughter and that something was happening.
In that moment when he says to you, you're going to be appointed the next commissioner, take us to that moment and what went through your head. What did you feel in that moment?
Pressure. That, okay, this is what you've worked for the past 34 years. Even if this was not a goal, this is certainly the path that you had chosen. Are you now prepared for it? There were no second thoughts. I was told that I was being considered for this position. I was asked if I would accept, and I readily, right then and there, said, yes, I accept. And here's why. Because I believe that my faith in God my faith is certainly grounded in the good Lord. And I've said before that for a few years I've been praying, Lord, wherever you lead me, I will go. And that is because I believe wherever the good Lord leads me, he will guide and protect. He will protect me. And so I said yes, because I do believe that I'm only here on this because it is God's will for me to be here at this time. And I do believe that God will protect me in this position. God knows my heart. My heart is that of serving, and I believe that he will give me the willpower to continue to serve my people.
You mentioned pressure. Given the circumstances then, because now, you've got a police commissioner who is resigning for the first time. There's all of this retiring, pardon me, for the first time at this juncture like this. But there is a lot going on within the police force. There are allegations of corruption. There are all these things happening, and now you're walking into this role as head of the police force. Take us back to the pressure that you felt at that moment.
I think the pressure came because people in our communities believed that our entire organization was corrupt, and that there had to be change in order for the public to see that we were truly not what they thought we were. We acknowledge the fact that there are bad apples, but I give Mr. Fernando lots of credit. I believe that with him seeking to retire at that time showed his true strength in leadership, that he took responsibility for the way the people of our country felt about our organization. And he said, I'll step aside, I will go into retirement so that they can have a fresh face, a fresh new senior executive leadership team to lead the organization. Mm-hmm. And so I commend him for that. I praise him for that. And I respect him highly for that.
Were you surprised by his retirement?
I certainly was, and I asked him, well, tell me why. Why you and why now? And his response to me is, I think it's time for me to go, Shanta.
What was the reaction from your family first?
Well, I did.
Now they done share you all these years. you not missed a 5th birthday party. You've been going to jungle all these years. What has been their reaction?
So I told my daughter that something was happening, mm-hmm. but I did not tell anyone else about that something was happening. Mm-hmm. So social media kind of spoke to them before I had an opportunity to do so. And in our family chat, they were asking questions, but I ignored everything until I had a conversation with the Prime Minister. And once I had that conversation with the Prime Minister, I went into the chat and says, okay, what the people are saying to you is truly true. I am Commissioner Designate at this time. And then, of course, I set my rules for them. They have rules.
They do.
They certainly do.
Can you share those rules? I am so curious. when your family is the commissioner of police, what are the rules?
Well, the one rule that I have for them is they are not to respond in social media. Okay. That I will be criticized. People will say all manner of evil against me, and I expect them not to respond in social media. That is not what we're not going to fight fire with fire. We're going to fight it with love.
That is an excellent rule, and I agree 150%.
So far they're doing fine.
Good. You're row privately and you say nothing publicly. All right, what about your colleagues? I mean, those who have worked with you all of these years, who've stood shoulder to shoulder. What was the reaction of your colleagues?
I think we were all shocked to know that first that Commissioner Fernando was going into retirement. And then, of course, shocked to know that you'd pulled someone from Grand Bahama who was, of course, very comfortable in her position in Grand Bahama, but certainly loved her position in her communities in Grand Bahama. But since then, I've had lots of support. Since the announcement was made, lots of support from my colleagues, especially my senior executive leadership team. When they found out, there were many of them who called me to say, Ms. Knowles, you got this, you can do this, we're here to support you. And so I thank them for that, and I encourage them to continue to support the chair of the Commissioner of Police.
I have to tell you that the cheers from the Grand Bahamians were very loud. You know, we have two factions within our news now. So in Grand Bahama, we are always having lively debates.
Oh, really?
And so the cheers were very loud. Grand Bahama got this. But again, on a more serious note, you came in at a time when really the police force was not at its finest. There were rumors of corruption, indictments. How are you addressing those concerns? How are you addressing the state of the force in light of all of this cloud of controversy that's been hanging over the force?
So one thing I try to do as best as possible is to encourage the officers and to thank them for their service. It is not an easy thing when we put on this uniform in the face of adversity and negative comments and sometimes cruel comments. But when an officer can adorn himself or herself in this uniform and go and face the public in times like this, it speaks certainly to their courage and their dedication. And so I want to first thank my officers for adorning the uniforms in the face of all of the negative talks, but going back into the communities and giving service. In my speech on the 3rd of January, I talked about us getting back into the classroom to talk about our ethics training and to talk about reestablishing our inspection and review branch. Nothing new to the organization. The inspection review branch has been established. We have already started inspecting stations. The integrity or the ethics training have begun. We have completed New Providence, Eleuthera, Exuma. This week we're in Grand Bahama and then the other family islands. And so we will continue to talk to our officers about ethics, about the things, our policies, and encourage them not to offend our policies, and not offending our policies will certainly encourage them not to offend the law.
So let's now begin to speak externally into the wider public. I mean, we can cut straight to the chase. We have a crime problem. We see the evidence of it. It is right around us, and even the fear of crime continues to be great. I want to talk really about what is your plan to address the crime situation and how are you executing that?
A lot of times I hear people ask, what is your plan to address? The Constitution of the Bahamas has already set that plan. They tell us what they expect our organization to do. It's now up to us to grab a hold of the Constitution, the plan, the mandate that it has for us, and go and work it. I have not written or not completed my policing plan as I'm required to do for 2025. We're in the process of that, and I'm hoping that I can get that to the minister before Monday.
Any highlights from that plan you can share with us?
Not at this time, because nothing. It has to go to the minister. Sure. It has to go to cabinet before it can be released. But we are working the mandate of the organization. We are targeting those prolific offenders. We see that crimes are happening because of these people who are continuously getting bail and reoffending. And so we continue to target these places. We continue to identify drug shops and target those drug shops. Yesterday, acting on the intelligence that our intelligence agency was able to uncover, we were able to go into one of our inner cities and recover 3 high-powered weapons. You may have seen that already on your news. And to take into our possession lots of ammunition that accompanied all 3 of those weapons. And so it tells us that our officers are still committed, going out there and working the plan that is in place for us.
One of the things that we hear about on this side when we're reporting, whether we're talking to your officers on the scene or just getting information, is this war over drug turf, or a turf war over drugs, etc., drugs, ammunition, and it's the proliferation to society is so great. It's not just, the crime itself, but it is the degradation of our communities as a result of this. Again, are there specific areas that you've started targeting immediately? I think you spoke to one in your intelligence, but are there specific areas that you've already started targeting to really begin to reduce the level of crime?
Well, certainly we want to look at those drug shops in all these communities, places where we suspect, I should say, that persons are selling drugs. Because we understand and we know for a long time that what we're seeing in our communities, the violence that we're seeing in our community is because of drugs. We are we are targeting those, and I mean seriously targeting. And my mandate is to go out there and search. Of course, do it the right way. We're not going to offend anyone, but we're going to get what is required of us to go and conduct searches. Do that, because if we don't search, we're not going to find.
Is it working?
It certainly is working. When I look daily at what is being sent to me, it tells me that it is working. Just look at last week in Grand Bahama. That was a significant drug bust, and I thank God that our officers acted quickly on the information that they got, and we were able to capture 2 men with hundreds of pounds of marijuana and take it from the streets, from getting to the streets here in the Bahamas or wherever it was supposed to go.
We have had a consistent issue with guns. The number of guns that are on the street, the number of gun crimes, the number of murders related to guns really brings us back to an issue with guns. How are we addressing the gun problem?
Again, we are targeting all areas that or information that we get to suggest those people who are in possession of illegal firearms. The Anti-Gang and Firearms Unit is made up of officers from our organization, from Customs, Bahamas Immigration, and the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. And then we work closely with our international partners, the U.S. especially, because we know that the guns are coming from north.
I would say we don't manufacture guns in the Bahamas.
We don't manufacture guns in the Bahamas. We know that they're coming. And then, of course, because of how our land is made up, or our country is made up, we know that they're getting through these borders. And so we are targeting courier companies. We're looking at information, well, of course, through information gathering, we're targeting courier companies. We're looking at private vessels that are sailing in and that are not declaring weapons, but somehow leave these weapons on our shores. And because it does happen, it does in fact happen. And so we are addressing, as far as possible through information gathering, the illegal firearms coming into our country. We will continue to do so because we see the hurt and harm that it causes to our people.
As you are doing this, is it these initial things, is it requiring more manpower? Is it drawing down on the resources that you have? And I ask that in the context of, will you need additional help?
Of course, we always require additional help. We have the mandate of our organization is certainly a wide one. It is not only us patrolling the streets. There is so much more that we as police officers are required to do. We're now into the schools as school resource officers, so that takes away from daily patrols. We're not complaining about it because we see that the program is certainly working for us, or has been working for us, and we will continue to build on programs that engage youth. Because we know that these issues that we're seeing also stem from our teenagers, yes? And so manpower issues, yes, we are in the process of recruiting, and we're hoping and praying that by April 1st, we will be able to recruit 200 new officers into our organization that that we will post throughout our Commonwealth.
Unfortunately, I passed the age of being able to join the police
Well,
force.
you look like you're about 30, and I think we could still
Thank
use
you very much, but I am past that age. You have to produce documentation.
You certainly do. We don't want any fraud.
But again, going back to your officers, again, you came in with an issue with corruption on the force. How were you addressing that internally? You spoke about the ethics training, but obviously there are officers who are doing some things they should not be doing. Eh?
And so we continue to address policy, or to remind them of policy, because when they offend, we will deal with them. The Complaints and Corruption Branch, we have beefed up that section. That is commanded now by Chief Superintendent McCook, and we've had to put other officers into that section. But we've also beefed up our tribunals. So last year we had 1 president or 2 presidents. This year we have 5 presidents.
Oh, wow.
To hear all the cases that they have in the tribunal. The message is clear that we will not tolerate corruption in our organization. No one has done so before. I don't think any commissioner tolerated corruption. We've always dealt with our officers when they offend, and we will continue to do so even more swifter than we did before.
As you are out there, dealing with these crime issues, you're battling something else as well, and that is these concerns of police brutality and excessive force. I mean, we see the videos that are posted on social media where people make all kinds of allegations, and sometimes you see the police in action. How are you addressing those concerns? Because that is directly impacting the relationship between the public and the police.
Sometimes I do believe that people sensationalize the action of police officers. We are required to use just enough force that it requires for us to detain someone. And so if someone is forcefully preventing themselves from being detained, we are required to detain that person without using excessive force. We continue to talk to our officers on every shift. We talk about justifiable force and how we talk about the use of our firearms and those kinds of things. So we continue to educate, is what I'm trying to say, our officers on what is required of them. Because if we know that if they just push the button a little bit, they will now be offending the laws of our land and not only our policies.
But you do accept that there are instances when
we accept
where there is excess.
Yes, of course. We certainly accept that there is excess force at times, and when there is, those officers are addressed.
Okay. What is the public's role? Because often, and I go back to this question of police brutality, often I see the public goading the police. And I say it from where I sit. I see them doing, I always say to people, the police are here to do a job. Whether you like it or not, they are the law enforcement agents. We have to abide by the law. But I often see people going at the police, sometimes taunting them. So, or being very abusive. What is your message to the public? Because we too have a role in this.
The thing is, I think a lot of times members of the public, especially those who are very abusive towards us, think that we are superhumans. We come from the communities that you come from. We are a product of your parenting. And so you get what you gave. However, we ask people to be respectful of these officers. We are putting our lives on the line daily to ensure that you are safe. We are leaving our homes and praying that we can go back to our homes and to our own families, so that when you feel offended, you have a place to go to seek refuge. And so please respect our officers. Give them encouraging words. Maybe when you see them in situations where they need help, reach out and help. Sometimes when I remember a video that went viral just a few weeks ago, with 2 officers trying to detain a mental man, instead of helping, the people were laughing and recording. And the officers could have been injured.
Yeah.
That man could have been injured. And so it tells us how insensitive some of us are in our communities.
We have
today.
a lot of introspection to do as people as well. I've seen the videos. I've seen the things that we do, and sometimes we want to talk about the police, but we don't want to hold them up to ourselves as the public.
That is correct.
So that's my moment on the soapbox.
Yeah,
How though, considering all that, what are you doing to regain the public's trust? Because you have these allegations of excess. You have the allegations of officers being corrupt. You have all of this going on. And so it has eroded trust. There is a lack of respect sometimes towards officers. So how are you rebuilding that trust?
So sometimes there is a lack of respect, but for the most part, I do believe that the Bahamian people believe in our organization and our officers. And so I've commanded our officers to get out of these stations and out of the vehicles. And I believe other commissioners have done the same. But I'm leading by example. I am going into these communities like I've done yesterday, like I've done in the past, meeting with people, listening to their concerns or the concerns that they may have about our organization, and finding ways, going back to my desk and finding ways how best we can serve members of the public. The only way we can do that, regain the trust or strengthen the trust of the people in our communities, is if we go out there. Yesterday was a beautiful moment for me. As I walked through Baintown, I got a message that I had walked through McCullough Corner, but I came out and went into the Baintown community. And I got a call to say that a woman in McCullough Corner wanted to see me. And so I shortened the walk and went back to McCullough Corner. And this was the home of D'Angelo Williams, a young man who had been killed by police. And I'm not going to go into that because that matter is before the courts. But the mother wanted to see me. I went there, and as I ascended her stairs, she came down to me and she embraced me. She embraced me and she said, "I'm not mad at y'all." And I said to her, "And we are not your enemies."
Wow.
And I asked her, "Would you care for me to ask my canon to pray for us?" She said yes. I invited Stephen Davies to come up. He prayed for us. And I promised her that every time I pass, I would hail her, or I'd have our officers come and check on her. And I think right then and there that strengthened our relationship, especially with the people in the community.
That was a moment.
It certainly was. And so that was really the highlight of the walk. I'm glad that I went to her and to hear her words.
Wow.
"I'm not mad at y'all."
D'Angelo Evans,
yes.
I think was the individual. Wow, that certainly was a moment. Commissioner, we're just about out of time, and so I want to, leave this final question with you. Looking ahead, what do you hope your legacy will be as the first female commissioner of police?
I think this is about the third time I've gotten that question, and I believe every time that I've gotten the question, the answer changed. And I believe as I continue in this position, the answer will become even more defined. But I say I want to be fair. Fair in dispensing justice to members of the public and also to my officers. But I want to serve with integrity, straight across the board. Serve with a good heart, my people and the officers that work shoulder to shoulder with me. And I hope that is the legacy that I could leave behind, that she was truly a servant leader.
Commissioner, unfortunately we are at the end of our time. We could talk for a whole other hour if necessary, but I know you have work to do. You've got to get out there. But, I cannot leave without, first of all, thanking you for the opportunity to speak with you on the show. I want to encourage you to continue to do the great work. God's speed over you, His covering, His blessing upon you. You are a woman of faith, and that's so very important. I thank you on behalf of the people of the Bahamas for the work that you are doing. I know the burden is heavy. Heavy is the head that wears that cap. So I know all too well. I can only imagine what it is that you face, but be encouraged that you have a nation behind you, supporting you.
Thank you so much.
And we are here to support you and to support our police.
Thank you so much.
Because where would we be without you? Okay?
That's a good question.
Yeah, very much so. I think about it often. Not always perfect, but certainly better than we would be. We are better with you than without you.
You certainly are.
All right, so
continue. So I just say thank you to the Bahamian people, and I ask them to strengthen their confidence in our organization. When you see our officers, give them an encouraging word, and I also believe that when you do that, they will become even more professional in delivering our service.
Most definitely. Well, good words on which we can end. Thank you very much. Continue to do great work.
Thank you.
And we can talk again, eh?
Of course, we certainly will.
Definitely. All right, Commissioner Shanta Knowles has not only made history as the first female commissioner of police, but is actively shaping the future of law enforcement in the Bahamas. Her journey, her leadership, and her vision for the Royal Bahamas Police Force serve as a testament to dedication, resilience, and the evolving role of women in leadership. As we celebrate Police Month and International Women's Day, it's important to recognize recognize the trailblazers, those who push boundaries and redefine what is possible. After 34 years of service, overall, Commissioner Knowles is one of those trailblazers, and we thank her for her service, her leadership, and for joining us tonight. And of course, to you, our viewers, we thank you for watching and engaging in these important conversations. So we'll see you on the next episode of On the Record.